So we just wrapped up talking about the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. disastrous hearing where he's getting asked questions and posed different views that he has put out there in the past and then going, no, I've never said things to that effect and all these accusations are lies. Well, as this was being covered, Harris Faulkner, a Fox News host, had a moment that is so just cringy and embarrassing where she thinks she's making this nailed it point, just drop the mic point, responding to something that was said during this hearing, but is definitely not making a nailed it point and is not saying something that justifies just dropping the mic. And it really just, it got me, and so I have to show it to you all. And it's on the subject of freedom of speech, because this hearing was about censorship and RFK Jr. complaining about being censored. A point was made by a Democratic congresswoman asking one of the witnesses a question about how everything has limits. Every right that we have has limits. That's obviously true. And one of the examples she cites prompts Harris Faulkner to make a point very confidently that was very, very unimpressive.
Things I learned very early on in constitutional law is that no right given to the people of the United States is absolute, and that includes the right to free speech, because you do not have the right to shout fire in a crowded theater because it could produce harm and death of people by being false. These social media platforms have user policies to try to prevent that kind of harm. Is that not correct, Ms. Wiley?
So that is correct. Democrats there, like Representative Sanchez, are trying to...
Oh, just get ready. Get ready, okay? The point that was just made by Congresswoman Sanchez, exactly correct. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater is the phrase that's used to describe the reality that you can use your free speech to do certain things, sometimes that can cross the line because they cause enough harm to no longer be protected by the First Amendment, including lying to a crowd of people, saying fire, and getting a big stampede going. But Harris Faulkner points something out. Take a look.
To lay out a case to discredit the witness of RFK Jr. And of course, they're doing that with my...
Sorry, I know y'all want to see this, but RFK Jr. discredits himself perfectly fine on his own.
Discredit the witness of RFK Jr. And of course, they're doing that with Maya Wiley, civil rights attorney there, also ran for office here in New York City and worked for one of the liberal media outlets as well as a contributor. What's interesting there, though, and I'm sure she is a great attorney, Sanchez, but you do have the right to yell fire in a theater unless there's no fire. It's pretty simple the way the law works. We're going to move on. We'll dip back in.
Oh, did you see the pride that she felt saying that? Watch it one more time.
Sanchez, but you do have the right to yell fire in a theater.
Yeah.
Unless there's no fire. It's pretty simple the way the law works. We're going to...
That's not the point that was being made, Harris Faulkner. True, if there's actually a fire, you can yell fire in a crowded theater. And even just yelling fire, if nothing happens, you're probably not going to be prosecuted for anything, or you probably didn't even commit a crime. It's if you create enough harm, whatever it is. That's just one example, Harris Faulkner, of using your speech to do harm, or you use your speech to hire a hitman. That's against the law. And in this example, using your speech to scream fire and wrongfully stir people up into a freak out where someone gets hurt, that can be something you're responsible for, and that could have been you violating the law. That is so funny. One more time. Just soak it up. I wish I had as much pride saying everything I say as she does here, saying something that's not as much of a zinger as she thought that it was.
It's interesting there, though, and I'm sure she is a great attorney, Sanchez, but you do have the right to yell fire in a theater unless there's no fire. It's pretty simple the way the law works. We're going to...
I'm feeling knots being created on my back. That's just, brutal. And then she ignores what is kind of an interesting conversation, because I'm sure the comparison that was being made when talking about censorship and Republicans and RFK Jr. concerned about social media platforms censoring, and I should be able to say all my conspiracy theories. And the comparison that was likely being made is similar to how under our Constitution, you can still cross a line within the country when it comes to your free speech. You can still cross a line and no longer be protected by the First Amendment. But social media platforms, they're not subjected to the First Amendment, but we have to have a similar conversation there. What balance do we want to be struck? Because you do want to consider harm and minimizing harm on your platform from people's speech, but you also don't want to over censor. And so what is that balance? Private companies can make their decisions on that, and the First Amendment doesn't apply to them as it pertains to freedom of speech because they're not the government, and the government is the one that is regulated by that. But still, we want a platform that kind of gives you some freedom to speak and then also minimizes harm, and it's a balance. And so that conversation is ignored by Harris Faulkner completely there. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are able to be uploaded to the YouTube channel, plus get the bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, and there's a link in the description.